Well, I can't push it off any longer. It's time to review the debut album from Fedde Le Grand. This one's called Something Real. I'll just be straight with you guys. I didn't really want to review this because I don't have much really that good to say about it. In quick terms, I think this one is one of the corniest house albums we've heard in the last few years, and I would have expected a lot more from Fedde Le Grand at this point. Being one of the producers that tended to get me into electronic music with singles like Don't Give Up, his remix of Paradise by Coldplay, and Sparks' Turn Off Your Mind, Fedde Le Grand's just done so much for the industry, and I really expected this album to be a little bit groundbreaking, but honestly, what I'm feeling with most of this thing, this one's really, in all aspects, not bringing anything new to the table. And this album does have some things that are good about it, and I'll get to those. On tracks like Immortal, you're getting literally Jack U, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. You're hearing a lot of the same styles that Jack U used on their album and with Skrillex's production on Justin Bieber's album. This is very similar, and I think honestly Fedde Le Grand is just trying to cherry pick what the average EDM listener is into right now. It just takes all the popular styles and kind of blends it into this really messy and non-cohesive debut album. First of all, we've got Give Me Some with probably one of my favorite artists in the electro house scene, Merk and Cremont. Now this one is probably the worst song I've heard by them. I think the production value is much lower, and I think honestly even some of their free music has been a lot better than this. They've made some big hits in the progressive and electro house scenes, just providing that funky house music. And with this one, it feels like it was extremely rushed. A lot of this album is just vocal lines repeating over and over again, leading into these kind of standard drops. Toward the beginning of this album, I feel like he pumped out all the singles real quick, and then it just goes into what the rest of the album is, standard progressive house music. On another hand, Feel Good with Hall and Rush was actually pretty good. I appreciate the tight samples on the drop. The production is very clean on this one, which I did enjoy for this record. And I Can Feel with Cobra Effect was easily one of my favorites on the record. The style on this is actually reminding me of what I expected to hear with Wolfgang Gartner's album. Somehow these producers, that neither of them are Wolfgang Gartner, managed to make that sound possible, which made it really enjoyable. Beauty from Ashes is the one trap track on the album, which I wasn't crazy about. The vocal chops on this thing seem very uninspired, and the most popular track on the album is Rhythm of the Night, which is of course a remake of Rhythm of the Night, whereas Bastille, Blau, and Nom de Strip have all made very interesting renditions of this track. I think this one absolutely doesn't really do anything. It's a remake in all terms, kind of providing that 80s pop sound translated into a little bit of a modern EDM sound, but I don't think it made the track really that interesting at all. I was honestly pretty disappointed when I first looked on this album and didn't see Don't Give Up, but was even more disappointed when I saw that it was on the album under a different name, Keep On Believing, which is basically saying the same thing as Don't Give Up, just reworded in a different way. Now, this track was fine as an instrumental. You didn't need to add anything, and then just the cheesiest of vocals is added onto this thing. It even says Don't Give Up repeatedly in the vocal version, but for some reason he thought, oh, let's rename it. Maybe people won't recognize it as Don't Give Up, and just recycling material that's 2 or 3 years old, and then maybe modern EDM fans will really dig this. Well, I noticed, and I didn't really like the vocal rendition. Of course, it is a little cool to see a vocal version of one of my favorite house tracks of the last couple of years, but I don't really think it added much. The next 3 tracks are all generic progressive house, and then the album closes off with the most standard electro big room track that could have possibly been made and featured on this album, The Noise, Yeah Baby. And literally, if I didn't know this was Fedde Le Grand producing this, I wouldn't know Fedde Le Grand was producing this because he's using nothing of his original style. I would have expected something like this from maybe Steve Aoki or Afrojack, but not a producer on the level of Fedde Le Grand. So if you couldn't tell already, this album was an extreme disappointment to me. There's only a couple of things on this album I really enjoyed, and out of 14 tracks, there's probably 10 of these that are just generic progressive house, maybe 9 or 8 if I'm being generous. But as where ratings go, with the new rating system, I think I'm going to give this a 1.5. Now that would be almost the worst. In my old rating system, 1 or 1.5 would be the 2 worst you can get. Now I've added a solid 0, a 0.5, and of course a solid 1. And this one I think is deserving of a 1.5, maybe because the production value still has some hope in it. There are some catchy melodies in this thing, but honestly, getting the same kind of vibes on this that I got with Carnage's album and Laid Back Luke's album. It's really just not doing a lot for me. There's so much repetition in this and just rip-off styles from modern EDM. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling on. If you haven't listened to the album yet, I have it linked in the description for all of you to listen on Spotify. And if you have heard it yet, let me know what you think in the comments. Just give me your top 2 favorite tracks, because that's about how many tracks I did like on this album. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I'll see you later. Peace.